Imagine waking up in the dead of night. The temperature outside is negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind is screaming like a wounded animal. You are an expert mountaineer, trained to survive in the harshest conditions on Earth. Yet, something terrifies you so profoundly, so deeply to your core, that you do not even bother to unzip your tent. You slice it open from the inside with a hunting knife. You run out into the pitch-black, freezing night. You leave behind your heavy coats, your boots, your survival gear. You run into the blinding snow wearing only your socks, or completely barefoot. You run down a jagged, treacherous mountain slope into the dark forest below. You are not running to survive the cold. You are running to escape something far, far worse. Welcome, fellow truth seekers and lovers of the unknown. Tonight, we are going to journey back to a chilling winter in 1959. We are traveling deep into the desolate, frozen heart of the northern Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. We are going to explore one of the most baffling, terrifying, and fiercely debated mysteries in human history, the Dyatlov Pass incident. So, pull your blankets close, turn down the lights, and prepare your mind. If you find yourself captivated by this dark journey into the unknown, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Now, let us step into the freezing winds of Kholat Syakhl, the Dead Mountain. The story begins in January of 1959. The world was in the grip of the Cold War, but for a group of young, vibrant students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, politics was the last thing on their minds. They were adventurers. They were athletes. They were young people who felt most alive when they were conquering the unforgiving wilderness. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student who was highly respected for his mountaineering expertise. Igor was a visionary leader, a young man who had designed his own portable stoves and specialized winter tents. He assembled a team of 9 others. There was Zinaida Kolmogorova, a warm and beloved student whose diary entries revealed a deep love for life. There was Lyudmila Dubinina, a fierce and resilient woman who was known for her unyielding spirit. The rest of the team included Alexander Kolovatov, Rustam Slobodin, Yuri Krivonashenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Nikolai Thibault, Brignoles, Alexander Zolotaryov, and Yuri Yudin. Zolotaryov was the oldest, a 38-year-old military veteran who had survived the horrors of World War II. He was a mysterious addition to the group, bringing an air of hardened experience. Their goal was ambitious. They planned to trek hundreds of miles through the snow-covered wilderness to reach the peak of Mount Otorten. The route was classified as Category 3, the absolute highest level of difficulty and danger in the Soviet tracking system. Only the most experienced, the most hardened survivalists were allowed to attempt such a journey. They packed heavy canvas tents, wooden skis, thick woolen clothing, and enough dried rations to keep them alive in a frozen wasteland. They were not amateurs. They knew the risks. They knew the cold. They knew the mountains. On January 23rd, the group boarded a train, their faces beaming with excitement. Black and white photographs from their journey show them laughing, playing the mandolin, and smiling brightly at the camera. They look like any group of friends embarking on the trip of a lifetime. They took a bus to Vizhai, the very last inhabited settlement before the vast, empty wilderness began. It was here, at the edge of the world, that fate intervened for one member of the group. Yuri Yudin, suffering from severe joint pain and illness, was forced to turn back. He hugged his friends goodbye, deeply disappointed that he could not share in their grand adventure. As he watched them ski away into the white expanse, he had no idea that he was watching them walk to their graves. He would be the sole survivor of the expedition, saved by a twist of cruel, random luck. For the next few days, the remaining 9 hikers vanished into the frozen wild. We know what happened during those days because they kept meticulous diaries and took dozens of photographs. They documented the grueling physical labor of skiing through deep, unbroken snow. They wrote about the biting cold, the the beauty of the untouched landscapes and their camaraderie around the campfire at night. By January 31st, they had reached the edge of a highland area. The weather began to turn violent. A severe snowstorm blinded their vision, forcing them to lose their direction. Instead of retreating to a forested area where they could find shelter from the brutal winds, Igor Dyatlov made a fateful decision. He ordered the group to pitch their tent on the open, exposed slope of a mountain. The mountain is known by the local indigenous Mansi people as Kholat Syakhl. Translated into English, the name means dead mountain. Why did Dyatlov choose to camp on such an exposed, dangerous slope? Some experts believe he wanted to practice high-altitude camping. Others believe he simply did not want to lose the elevation they had fought so hard to gain. Whatever the reason, as the sun set on February 1st, 1959, the 9 hikers ate a meal of cold bacon and biscuits. They did not light their stove. They huddled together inside the heavy canvas tent, writing their final diary entries and taking their final, haunting photographs. And then, the long, dark night began. No one knows exactly what triggered the nightmare. No one knows what sound echoed through the howling wind, or what shadow fell over their tent. But in the middle of that freezing night, absolute, sheer terror overtook 9 hardened survivalists. The panic was instantaneous and overwhelming. They did not take the time to untie the entrance of the tent. They grabbed knives and frantically slashed their way out through the sides. They spilled out into the negative 30-degree snowstorm. Some wore only socks. Some had a single shoe. Some were entirely barefoot. They left their warm coats, their survival gear, their axes, and their food behind. They fled down the treacherous, rocky slope, stumbling and falling in the pitch-black darkness, driven by a primal, blinding fear. When the hikers failed to send a telegram from the town of Vizhai on February 12th, their families began to worry. Days turned into weeks. The silence from the mountain was deafening. Finally, a massive rescue operation was launched. Volunteer students, military helicopters, and experienced trackers flooded the region. On February 26th, a search party stumbled upon a chilling sight. There, on the slope of the dead mountain, was the abandoned tent. It was half torn down and covered with snow. When the searchers brushed the snow away, they found the massive slash marks. The tent had been cut open from the inside. All of the group's belongings were still inside, neatly arranged. Their boots, their money, their cameras, their cold weather gear, all left behind. Leading away from the tent were 9 sets of footprints. Some showed bare feet, some showed socks. The footprints led down the slope toward the edge of a dark, dense forest, nearly a mile away. The searchers followed the eerie trail. At the edge of the forest, under a massive, ancient cedar tree, they found the remains of a small, desperate fire. Beside the ashes lay the frozen bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. They were stripped down to their underwear. The branches of the cedar tree were snapped off up to 15 feet high. The skin on their hands and fingers was shredded and torn, suggesting they had desperately climbed the tree. Were they looking for a way back to the tent? Or were they trying to escape something lurking on the ground? Between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, the searchers found 3 more bodies: Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. They were frozen in poses that showed they were desperately trying to crawl back up the mountain, back to the safety of the tent. They had realized that the cold was going to kill them, and they had fought with every ounce of their remaining strength to climb back up the slope. Slobodin had a small crack in his skull, but the medical examiners determined that all 5 of these hikers had died from severe hypothermia. Their deaths were tragic, but in the freezing conditions, they were scientifically explainable. They had frozen to death, but the mystery was far from over. 4 members of the group were still missing. It took more than 2 long, grueling months for the snow to melt enough to reveal the final, most terrifying chapter of this story. In early May, searchers probing a deep ravine further into the woods made a horrific discovery. Buried under 13 feet of compacted snow, they found the bodies of Ludmila Dubinina, Alexander Zolotaryov, Alexander Kolovatov, and Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles. The state of their bodies defied all logic and reason. While the first 5 hikers died of hypothermia, these 4 had suffered massive, catastrophic trauma. Thibault-Brignole had a shattered skull. The damage was so severe, it looked as though he had been struck by a weapon wielding massive force. Dubinina and Zolotaryov had their chests crushed inward. Their ribs were shattered into pieces. The lead medical examiner stated that the force required to cause such internal destruction was equivalent to being struck by a speeding car at high velocity. But here was the most chilling detail. Despite having their bones completely pulverized, there was absolutely no external bruising, no scratches, and no soft tissue damage on their chests. It was as if a massive, invisible pressure had squeezed them until their bones snapped, leaving their skin untouched. And the horror did not end there. When the medical examiner inspected Lyudmila Dubinina, he found that her eyes were missing. Her upper lip was gone, and her tongue had been completely ripped out from the root. Alexander Zolotaryov was also missing his eyes. The official Soviet autopsy report concluded with a chilling and vague sentence. It stated that the hikers had died due to an unknown compelling force. An unknown compelling force. The investigation took even more bizarre turns. When the victims' clothing was tested, investigators found abnormally high levels of beta radiation on several garments. Why would hikers in the middle of a snowy wilderness have radioactive clothing? Furthermore, families of the victims claimed that at the closed casket funerals, the skin of their loved ones had a strange, unnatural deep orange hue, and their hair had turned completely gray. The lead Soviet investigator, a man named Lev Ivanov, was suddenly ordered by high-ranking communist officials to close the case immediately. All documents were classified and locked away in secret military archives. The entire area around the dead mountain was strictly forbidden to anyone for 3 years. For decades, the world has tried to understand what happened that night. Theories have multiplied, ranging from the scientific to the paranormal. The most widely accepted scientific explanation is the avalanche theory. This theory suggests that a small, localized slab avalanche was triggered when the hikers cut into the snow to pitch their tent. In the middle of the night, a heavy block of solid snow slid down, crushing the tent and breaking the ribs of those sleeping on the downhill side. Terrified that a larger avalanche was coming, they cut their way out and fled. The severe injuries of the 4 in the ravine could have occurred when they fell into the deep, rocky gorge in the darkness. Animals in natural decomposition could explain the missing eyes and tongue. Recently, computer simulations created by the engineers behind the movie Frozen demonstrated that a slab avalanche could indeed cause such specific blunt force trauma. But critics of the avalanche theory raise massive objections. There was no physical evidence of an avalanche found by the rescue teams. The tent stakes were still upright in the snow. The footprints were perfectly preserved on the surface. How could an avalanche bury the tent but leave footprints visible just a few feet away? Furthermore, these were expert mountaineers. They would have recognized an avalanche. They would not have run a mile into the forest without their boots. Another fascinating theory revolves around infrasound. This scientific phenomenon occurs when high winds interact with the specific dome shape of a mountain, creating a low-frequency sound wave. This sound wave cannot be heard by the human ear, but it vibrates at a frequency that directly affects the human nervous system. It can induce overwhelming feelings of panic, absolute dread, and unexplainable terror. Could the wind on the dead mountain have generated an infrasound wave that drove 9 rational people entirely insane, making them rip open their tent and run into the cold to escape a terror that was entirely in their own minds? Then, there are the military testing theories. During the search operations, another group of hikers, 50 miles away, reported seeing strange, glowing orange spheres floating in the night sky over the dead mountain. The lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, later publicly stated that he believed UFOs, or experimental military weapons, were responsible. Was the Soviet military testing secret parachute mines or radiological weapons in the desolate Urals? Did an explosion in the sky terrify the hikers, blind them, and release radiation that covered their clothes? This would explain the military cover-up, the classified files, and the strange orange skin reported at the funerals. Some look to older, darker legends. The Mansi people avoided that specific mountain slope for centuries. There are whispers of a territorial creature, something akin to the Yeti, roaming the deep woods. While easily dismissed by science, the sheer brutality of the crushed ribs and the missing tongue keeps this terrifying campfire story alive in the imaginations of many. Finally, the katabatic wind theory suggests that a sudden, violently cold wind slammed into the tent, dropping temperatures drastically and burying the tent in blowing snow, causing a claustrophobic panic that led to their tragic demise. Despite modern technology, endless investigations, and countless books, the truth remains buried under the snow of the Urals. The Dyatlov Pass incident stands as a monument to human fragility in the face of nature's darkest secrets. 9 brilliant, strong, and brave souls walked into the wilderness and encountered something that defied all explanation. Today, a metal monument stands on the rocky slope of the dead mountain, bearing the names of the 9 who never returned. It is a silent guardian over a mystery that may never be solved. It asks us to look into the darkness and wonder what really happened out there in the freezing night. We may never know the truth, but the story of these 9 explorers will echo through history forever. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey into the unknown. If this story sent shivers down your spine and made you question what hides in the dark, please hit that like button right now. It helps uncover more mysteries. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss our upcoming highly detailed investigations into the world's most fascinating unsolved cases. Stay safe, stay curious, and always respect the wild.